Now, to switch over to our first guest, I'm delighted to bring online. Now, unfortunately, they can't see me, but you can see them and you can see me. Our first guest will be Hugh Bosely and his co-founder, who we'll hear about in just a second. And they have been creating a coding bootcamp for refugees in the Middle East called Rebootcamp. Hugh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mike.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to dispense with a chit-chat, and it's great that you could join us. Oh, by the way, where are you coming in from just now?
The edge of the Western world, San Francisco, California.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, we're short on time. We've got many speakers to get through today, but perhaps you'd just like to quickly outline what Rebootcamp is all about.
Code boot camps, we got about 70 of them here in the United States. We've got a few here in San Francisco. And we're partnered with a big one, Hack Reactor. And we're bringing Code Bootcamp pedagogy, technology, for lack of a better term, to the Middle East. And it's landing about 5 miles from the largest concentration of Syrian refugees outside of Syria, Zaatari refugee camp in North Jordan.
And what exactly are you trying to achieve?
So we'll be turning refugees into programmers, full stack developers. It's a 16-week program. And we have promises from the tech industry to hire every single graduate that we can produce for the next 2 years.
That's incredible. So you've just started the project. How are you going to fund it?
The project is being funded by a number of different partners. These are both private sector and government partners. The King Abdullah Fund for Development, Queen Rania Foundation, the Royal Court, but also big corporate partners like SAP, Autodesk, Adobe, and of course Hack Reactor is playing a major role in this.
So a lot of people might be skeptical that you can take people in a raw sense and just turn them into developers and coders. How do you propose to answer that?
Well, we've got 4 years of proven outcomes here in the United States. There's about 70 boot camps, and they've demonstrated the power to take somebody from maybe knowing a little bit about programming to somebody that's qualified as a junior developer in 12 to 16 weeks. We're applying the same model. There's certainly going to be challenges with language, with culture. We're working those out in a test pilot, localizing the curriculum. But there's a lot of talent there. A lot of these young men and women were studying computer science, ICT technology at Damascus University before the bomb started to drop. So they're close. Our goal is to sort of take them that last mile.
So the Syrian Donors Conference tomorrow in London will be particularly focused on jobs, education and skills. Do you think that the kinds of people that you'll be able to educate there, they'll be able to find work online? A lot of people often come to us at Tech Refugees and say, you know, what about getting Syrian refugees to work online and get paid online and therefore not have to, to work remotely?
Sure,
how feasible do you think that is?
Extremely feasible. I mean, in this day and age when, when there's almost universal bandwidth, there's many opportunities to sort of build a talent pipeline between the Middle East and these refugee communities and Silicon Valley or other tech centers in Europe. And we actually plan on, as part of our initiative, running a dev shop. So we'll be brokering, not only be training them, but we'll be brokering their talents to Silicon Valley once they've graduated.
So if I'm an entrepreneur, I could effectively hire you guys to outsource some of my development work and thereby helping Syrian refugees stay in employment, earn money, etc.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's our plan, is to not only to host our own dev shop, but also to host remote seats for a company, say like Airbnb or Pinterest or TripIt, who might want to actually employ a Syrian refugee as an employee. We'll provide the seat, we'll provide the bandwidth, the environment, the game room, everything that they would have if they were actually working here in San Francisco.
Now, I notice you have a guest there on the stream there. Perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Ala. I am a co-founder of Rebootcamp as well. I joined a few months ago and working to launch the first bootcamp in the Middle East, in Jordan.
And Ala is actually Syrian.
And I am from Syria.
Perhaps you'd just like to tell us your story briefly, sir.
Well, I live in Dubai for the last 12 years. I work in branding, web design, graphics. 3 years ago, I joined the UNHCR, and after the war broke in Syria, I sort of dedicated my experience, my skills towards refugees, trying to equip the at-risk people in the borders with digital skills. And right now, really, we're focusing on the project to make it live.
And I think a lot of people are incredibly curious, actually, about how refugees use technology. We've heard a lot about the use of smartphones and things like that. I mean, Ala, what do you think about some of that? Do you think it's pie in the sky that people can help with apps or websites? Or do you think there's some real, that technology can really help refugees?
It definitely can help refugees. I think with all the stories we hear and we see how people really escaping, and I mean they're using smartphones for maps, to stay connected, the most important thing really is the routes, crossing borders. And I really believe the only solution for the problem is through technology.
That's amazing. Hugh, where do you go from now? What do you need to get this project continue, sustainable, up and running, etc.?
Right. So we're running a test pilot, sort of localizing the curriculum in Amman, Jordan, beginning March 4th. And that's going to run for 16 weeks. We're identifying the cohorts right now. Beyond that, we have a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding with UNHCR to deploy labs outside of Zatari refugee camp, and most likely along the border between Mafraq, which is North Jordan, and Irbid. We've been invited into Lebanon by McKinsey, by Deloitte, by Jussur. We hope to partner with those folks. It costs about $250,000 to launch a lab and run it for a year. A lab will graduate about 90 students per year. So yeah, I mean, we're reaching out to industry. We're reaching out to State Department, to USAID, the other big funders, the European Union, of course. And our message is, hey, we have a technology that will empower them, will keep them local. Help us out.
Fantastic. And how can we help over here in Europe?
Get the message to the EU. They've just appropriated $300 million for refugee education. We'd like to be able to partner with some of the people that are already on the ground in Turkey and Lebanon, and bring this technology to these areas as well.
What are the difficulties of operating in this kind of environment? I mean, shipping in equipment, where are you going to get the equipment from? I mean, what about the bandwidth? How are you going to get actual internet access?
Right. So, believe it or not, bandwidth is pretty good in the areas, even in the remote areas in North Jordan.
Amazing.
Of course, in Amman, it's very thick. But as we get out towards the refugee communities, and a lot of them are very informal, the bandwidth is still pretty good. They're 3G right now, which we can pull a lot down through the towers at night. A lot of the curriculum is cached by night and utilized during the daytime. So technology, at least in terms of bandwidth, doesn't pose the greatest problem. The greatest problem is sort of localizing the curriculum. 50% of our curriculum is soft skills. So it's important that these be delivered in the native language. We're having to translate those right now. All the facilitators will be bilingual. So those are some challenges. And
what about staffing, Hugh? How are you going to get teachers, lecturers to get there? You're running on a minimal viable product, as it were, and then lots of Skyping in, or what? How will you staff it?
Of course, yes. So originally, we're starting out very lean. It's a lean startup approach, sort of listen hard, learn fast, pivot or persevere. But we're getting some of our first facilitators from Hack Reactor, of course, and we've invited other code boot camps to offer their facilitators as well. Ultimately, we'll end up training the facilitators from within our own cohorts. So, one of the pathways might be industry, another one might be our dev shop. Still, another pathway, of course, could be come back into the school as a facilitator. You know the curriculum at this point. You're bilingual. You're the sort of the perfect person for this. So it's a good model once you kind of get it rolling, but initially you have to rely on others. We actually have identified Syrian refugees here in San Francisco that have gone to Code Bootcamp, so they're going to be volunteering for us as well.
That's incredible. So what you're saying is you're able to make it self-sustainable by teaching people on the ground, and then they themselves become the teachers of their
Absolutely.
Other people.
Train the trainers. It's a model that's worked wonderfully here, and eventually we'll push them out because we want them to get into industry. But they also act as ambassadors. They're going out into the community. They're sort of spreading the message. One of the things we're going to be running is called CodeMobile. It's basically a bus with a bunch of computers inside. We're going to the refugee camps. We're going to the refugee communities, also the at-risk host communities. Doing little hackathons. Kids code their first, hello world, planting seeds, if you will. And our graduates and our facilitators will be sort of staffing the CodeMobile, and they will be ambassadors to our future students. Role models are extremely important in this culture, so we're very mindful of that.
And are you? There's a lot of been tons of initiatives to get people to learn to code just in the Western world. Code Academy, Code.org, etc.
Absolutely.
Are you going to be using some of those kinds of tools?
Absolutely. Hadi at Code.org is a big supporter. Zach Sims at Code Academy. So we've gotten. It's not a difficult sell. We're going to teach refugees to code. Are you in or are you out? Almost everybody is in. It's because of its power to really extricate. Really, the power is in being able to extricate a refugee from the camp or from the sort of the refugee environment in a very short time compared to the traditional 4-year education or even sort of a longer vocational track.
Okay, Hugh, we've got just a couple of minutes left on this particular call. So, finally, sort of capping off, are you guys going to be over in London anytime soon? We'll be able to kind of hang out with you guys, or how can people connect with you if they want to help? There might be people on the live stream here today at TechFugees Live, hashtag TechFugees Live, guys. Who might want to help you, perhaps even come and join you. What's the best way of doing that? What's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're accepting volunteers. We're going back and forth a lot because we're brokering relationships with partners here, hiring partners. So we'll pop through London and do what we can to sort of to spread the message.
And I think, Hugh, what's your email address so people can find out more?
Hugh, Hugh, at rbk.org.
Fantastic. Well, Hugh Bosely and Ala from Rebootcamp, CodeCamp in San Francisco, thank you so much for joining us here on TechFugees Live. It's fantastic you are kicking off our stream today, and all power to you. Good luck. Let us know how we can help at TechFugees, and thank you very much. And we'll be going now over to our next interview. Thanks, guys.